Okay, natural resources. In finishing up with water, we are going to take a look at water quality and pollution. Remember that most of the water that we have on the surface of the earth is not actually usable for consumption. And so, what we do have, we have to make sure that we are taking care of and that we are keeping it as clean as possible. So, we have to make sure that we are looking at water quality. You know, for generations, people have regarded water as a way of disposing of waste, and so people would dump things down their sink that they shouldn't, or dump things in water that they shouldn't, and so this has caused a lot of problems as far as pollution and the specific use of water. Whatever you're using it for dictates how much. What the quality of that water needs to be, how clean that water needs to be. For instance, if I were washing my car, then it wouldn't matter to me just how clean. I mean, yeah, I want the water to be clean, but it wouldn't matter to me too much how clean it is because it's going on my car. But would I want to use the same water that I'm spraying on my car to drink? I probably would not. So whatever you're actually using it for dictates, the quality of it, and how clean you actually need it to be. There are some different types of pollution sources, some places that pollution actually comes from. And the first, we're going to look at point source pollution. And with point source pollution, and I don't know why I have a hard time saying that, this results from these contaminants directly being introduced into the water. And you know exactly where it's coming from, one or multiple identifiable locations. So with point source, we can literally point to the source of where it's coming from. So point source solution is actually going to let us know exactly where that pollution is being entered into the water supply. Non-point pollution or diffuse source pollution just basically means you've got a pollution issue, but you can't necessarily tie it down to one particular location where it's coming from. You know you've got some issues, but you don't see some big pipe or some big issue with runoff. You know that there's pollution. You just don't exactly know how to control the pollution, where it's actually coming from. With background pollution, this is not necessarily associated with people. This is stuff that happens as part of the natural process where you may have issues with contamination due to minerals. You may have issues with contamination due to decomposing matter or organic matter. So with point, non-point, or point and the diffusion source, you're looking specifically at knowing that there is some sort of a contaminant in the water that a human had something to do with. Background pollution, typically, you don't know. You can't really control it because it's actually happening because of natural reasons. There are several different ways that you can actually detect water pollution, and in doing that, a lot of times we're actually looking at the life that's in the water. We're looking at the insects that are in the water. We're looking at what is actually there in order to help us to determine how bad a water pollution situation actually is. You can detect certain chemicals as low as parts per million or billion in laboratories when doing water testing. And hopefully with cohorts A and B, we'll be able to go down to the creek and actually do some water testing. I've got some water testing kits, and we can actually see what's going on in the creek behind the school. So we can actually use water testing in order to be able to do that. But sometimes we can actually just look at what's there. And this is a much cheaper way to do it. It's inexpensive, and everybody can do this, is do what's called a macroinvertebrate count. Now, what that basically means is you're looking at certain insects, you're looking at certain things that are living within the water or near the water, and it will tell us just how polluted the water is by what's actually living there. So, when we're looking at these creatures, there are some that are really intolerant to pollution. And so, if you see these, then that means that you probably have got some pretty clean water. Stonefly is the one that you're actually seeing in the picture here, but there are some other examples here as well that indicate that you have a fairly decent water quality because these just don't tolerate pollution very well. Somewhat pollution tolerant. You can see you've got some different stuff here. This is actually a Dobson fly. I just did the picture for the first one that was on the list, but crayfish, flyfish larvae, damselflies, which a lot of times we think about as dragonflies, beetle larvae. Well, there is a dragonfly and clams, and so all these are somewhat pollution tolerant. So they can take a little bit of diminished water quality, and then these organisms right here. This is the aquatic worm, leeches, some snails. All of these are pretty pollution tolerant. And so if you get down to a pond or lake and all you've got is leeches and snails, and you don't have any other flying organisms or anything like that, then you may have some issues with some pollution. So, next time we will be taking a look at air and air quality and air pollution. So, take care, and I will talk to you soon.